Welcome. This is Justin Letheby, and this is going to be our next session on Blab, and it's going to be basically how to safeguard you and your clients' data through technology and various things. Terry is here next to me. How you doing, Terry?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Anything you want to say before we get started? What you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Terry Wieland, an agent for Keller Williams. I'm also a business coach, and definitely want to, I think you're going to teach me more that I'm going to be able to contribute on this one. So
that's all right. I made you picked you pretty hard the last one. That's only fair. My name is Justin Letheby. I'm a real estate trainer, licensed CE instructor, MLS instructor, speaker, you name it. I pretty much do it in the real estate world at this point in time. And today, again, we're just going to try to walk through one of the things that really has been bugging me lately is just how wide open we leave ourselves and our data points for things. And that's a big jeopardy, right? We can't share in real estate. We can't share data. Even though we talk too much, we definitely can't share electronically. That becomes a very dangerous situation that we put ourselves through. So I just wanted to make sure we kind of covered some various avenues that we need to make sure that we're staying safe with and that we are getting around from and really making sure we're locking things down and staying inside that arena. So we'll get started. My first one is the simplest one in the world. We all have it attached to our hips. How are we making our mobile device safe? And as far as that goes, when we're making our mobile device safe, one of the first things we should do is lock it down. We should not just swipe our thumb straight across the screen and say, hey, we're open to the world. One of the things that happens with that is when we do that, you lose your phone, you drop it, you lose attention for it for 3-4 seconds. Someone could take that phone straight off the countertop, straight off, wherever you have it left at, and now they have access to not only your information, but anybody else's information you have in there. Think about the apps that we have inside our phone these days, what we're keeping in there. I don't know about you, Terry, but I know me. I have my Google Wallet app in there. I have, Dropbox. I have all these sort of accounts that exist in here at all point in time. And when I'm in there, if I have that open, I don't have a password in there at the very least. Now I've opened myself up to the world. So
yeah, I password protect just about everything on my phone.
So do you password protect on your phone? So or are you just typing like a 4-digit code?
Yeah, I do. I have thumbprint to access my phone, period. But then I do 4-digit code for any of the apps that I think are significant that I wouldn't want anybody else to get to.
And that's always the right way to do it, right? If you can specifically lock down apps that you are finding crucial or very private for your business, I'll always do that. I do pretty much the same thing. I don't do that. I should take that tip up and take that extra step. I love the biometrics, and almost any phone you're using today, Apple, iPhone, I even think there's some Microsoft phones coming out today that will do the thumbprint for things. I know Google early on, it was a big fit. It was a good test. They actually wanted to do facial recognition. Put that face up there and you could go. The problem with that is if you scanned a picture of one of us, you could actually do it and it would still recognize it. But it was actually kind of nice. So I actually like that as well. So I like the pin. I think that's always a good thing. And then the other thing that I always like, because if you do lose it, and we all have this available to us, you need to have the tools or be aware that you can locate your device from a computer or from another device and lock it down and reformat it, right? iPhones have Find My iPhone, where there you can come in there and you can lock that device down and send off alarms if you lose it, do whatever. But if worst case scenario, you're never receiving it, you can sit there and basically force a hard reset from a computer, right? You aware of that?
How do you do that? What's the platform?
So easiest way to do it, if you're from an Android device, like I know you are as well, Terry, you can just go into Google Play Store and you can go to My Devices and you can find your device, and right from there you can do it.
Okay, that's what I figured.
The other thing you can do, I know you have a tablet and I have a tablet, and if you have a tablet as well, you can actually load a device manager app onto your secondary device, and you can do it that way as well.
Okay.
The theory with that one is you're not going to lose both devices at the same time. So that's one of the things that happens as well. And I do like that one. It's easy enough, and to me, it's one of the things that works fairly easy for you. So that's number one, is to me is just protect your phone and make sure it's protected at all times and locked down. and protect it from consumers. The next one that I like is, and to me, we don't do it enough, and actually I'm just starting with it right now because I haven't done it enough, is the two-step verification. And it's also known as two-step authentication, and you'll see that in different terms out there. To me, the two biggest culprits that I think do it right now and do it fairly well would be Google and then Dropbox. Right? And what two-factor authentication essentially means is this. You have to have a secondary way of saying who you are. So instead of just typing a code in, at some point in time, it's going to say, okay, you tried logging into this device. Now I need another way of going on there. If you used to be in the corporate world, it used to be a little key fob that had a running number that would change every 15, 30 seconds. When you're on a Google phone or you can do this from an iPhone if you really wanted to. You can do it from really any device. What it's going to happen typically is it's going to send you a text message with a code that you have to now type into whatever it is. And it's going to be, about a 6-digit code that you type in. And now it says, yep, that you are who you are. Because again, the whole purpose of this is if I have my phone with me and I'm typing, now I have authenticated that it's legitimately me who's in there and not someone else that's going on. To me, a couple of things that go on in here is I like it. Again, Google and Dropbox, I think, do a really good, solid job with it. They make it really easy to do. It's a really easy setup. Even Apple iCloud has it. Now, I'm not an Apple guy, so I don't have it. I just thought I'd mention it since probably I don't even know. I'd have to look at that. But I'm going to guess 60% of all realtors are probably an Apple guy. But one of the things that I like in here is there's actually a website. I'll put it here in the comment section. It actually, you can go to that website and it's going to show you all the places that have authentication in there and all the ones that you should request authentication to. And what's really cool about it is it will give you an opportunity right from there to message them and say you need to have this. So if you have an app that you really like and you want them to get on there, right from that app, it's going to actually say, you know what, you need to do it. And you got to come out there. And it's just a little Twitter account straight to their Twitter support page. And you can kind of blast them real fast. Say, by the way, I want this, I want this, I want this. So, and most of them pretty much have it. I mean, there's very few. Evernote has it. Google Drive has it.
Evernote was the one I was trying to think of. I knew I had it somewhere else.
Evernote?
Yeah.
Yeah. Evernote has it. They've had it for a while, although, that one I probably should lock down because that one I'm actually using more and more every day with trying to find articles, but I don't see it as private data. Are you using Evernote right now for more consumer level information?
I use Evernote for just about everything. So I have business folder or business notebooks. I have personal notebooks. I pretty much use it for everything that I do. I don't go in, I don't email back and forth into it, but it is kind of my, catch-all for, certain things that I'm doing in the field, or like you just said, if I'm, if I catch an article or something that I want to see later, then I'll do that. But I use it for a ton of stuff.
Right. Yeah, and I knew you kind of did. For me, right now it's more of a Post-it note. So I don't really use it for any real personal information right now. For me, it's Evernote is a Post-it note tool where if I have an article I want to read later, that's where it goes into. If I have a quick thought in my head, I'm going to write a quick note, and that's where that stuff goes to. So I can come back at a consistent basis, review where I'm at and what I need to work on next. For instance, one of the topics that I will be building here very shortly is 5 technologies that I think will affect real estate in the next 5 years. So I've been saving articles back and forth that I think are just kind of not real estate specific, not something you're going to see in Inman, but some things that I think that are pertinent that are going to start popping up that realtors need to pay attention to now. And that's what I use Evernote for. But, there's other things out there. I mean, nothing that's really huge. What I do think is amazing, which actually scares the bejesus out of me, especially from a managing brokerage level, how many banks do not have two-factor authentication.
That's what I was just looking at is going down this list.
It scares me. I mean, and you got to think about it. You don't have two-level authentication. And if you're a managing broker, that data has to stay separate. You can't have that stuff out there. To me, if I was a managing broker and I was managing my own office, if I was an independent, boutique type office, this is something that I want to be knowing right off the bat. And there's some big ones.
Oh, all of the big ones. I mean, I'm not going to throw any names out here, but I'm looking at the list right now, and I mean, 8 out of the largest 10 banks in the country don't have it.
Yeah, no, it's mostly, and actually I think it's kind of cool. It's mostly the ones that have it are like the small ones or like credit unions, which have the less manpower to actually technically get this stuff done. Just kind of kills me. So, I mean, that's one of the things that I just wanted to make sure attention. That's why I like this website, because it's killing me that when I look at this from a banking perspective, that how many of these people do not have it at all. And, to me, I'm starting to look at it going, okay, if I want to change my bank accounts, who would I choose? And then you got some third-party companies. The things that I like is, you got some things out here like communications. You got MailChimp. I'm a big MailChimp fan. I love the fact they have that level authentication. So nothing too crazy on that one, but I do like, I thought I'd point out because I think it's huge, and that list can go forever with everything.
And even the even the investment companies, very few of them are using them as well.
Well, there was a talk, and I thought some were working on it, but obviously they're not working on it fast enough. Some were saying they're working on their own protocol because it's going to be more secure, and that could be true. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. But to me, when you got some of these other banks that are doing it now, it's insane. So anybody dealing with finances, with your money, it's kind of crazy to me that you don't have it going on.
Right.
But I've always seen, basically from a technology perspective, financial institutions are usually a little slower to move forward. And I'm sure there's reasons for it, but that's what it is. Next one is, so you got two-step verification, you got that authentication, like that. Next one is password protection. I think one of the things that we mess up, this is one of the easiest ways to secure any data that we have available to us. One of the easiest ways that we can make life simpler for ourselves and not get hacked and not make ourselves accessible. A couple tricks to this. Don't use ABC123. And actually, if I can enlarge this real quick, kind of cracked me up the other day. What do you think the most common password used today is?
Probably something ridiculous like 1, 2, 3, 4. Or
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because typically you got to have 6 digits typically, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next most common password.
It's ridiculous.
Number 10. Here, you might appreciate this one. Number 10, football. Right.
Got to get a little bit more creative than that, but
it's not horrible. But I mean, it's still kind of crazy. It's all things like that. They had changed. I know at one time it was Monkey 1, 2, 3 was one of the most popular ones, and I don't understand why Monkey was it. But so you got some crazy ones that are out there. You'll see a lot of people that'll be dog names, things like that. And the problem is, not only is it the password that becomes a problem. I don't know if you do this, so I'm not going to try to call you out on it, but you might use the same password for 7 accounts. Yeah.
I'm totally guilty of that. Or a close variation. That's a problem.
And so let me ask you, why do you do that?
Because it's simple.
And you don't have to take you don't have to do any manpower to remember it, right?
Because I'm a high IDE and I need it to be simple.
And I get that, right? Same thing I've done in the past. I've done that as well, where I've done that and it's like, okay, I've got this. And just like you said, it's a variation. It's just one off, one off, one off. It's various things. Maybe there's a letter associated with whatever account it is, so I know which one I'm doing, type of thing. But easily crackable. Easily crackable. But there are tools out there that'll make it easier for us so we don't have to worry about that. Tools like LastPass or OnePass are probably the two most popular password encryption devices that are out there, where it will not only create the password for you, it will store it for you. And as long as you have that on your browser as a extension or an add-on, depending on which browser you're using, it will then fill the fields out for you, or you can ask for it to fill it out for you, depending on how you want to do it, and it will put it in there. So you only have to remember one password, and that's the main password. Now, the trick with using LastPass or OnePassword is if you can't remember the main password, you have lost everything because they do not keep track of that password. So I freaked myself out about a year ago. I'm typing what I thought used to be my password, and it's going, nope, you don't have it, you don't have it, you don't have it. I'm going, oh, geez, I got to start all over again. Luckily enough, I remembered it. But yeah, if you forget that password, they don't hold it. They don't hold it at all. And it's done. So if you don't remember, you're host.
So there's obviously really, really strong security issues. Even with something like that, if somebody got that one password on your computer, like that. But the thing that I see that's even a bigger deal, which this may trump that and kind of take the place of that, is the fact that you can save, and auto-populate your passwords off of your desktop or laptop. So, like you start to go in and bam, it automatically populates it in there. I've never done that just because of a security issue, because I just see where that could be. I mean, if somebody got a hold of your laptop, then all of a sudden they can get everything. So, I mean, is that something that you recommend people don't do, that I see so many people do?
Yeah, no. I would completely agree. I mean, again, just like that, everyone has an iteration of one password. They also do the other thing where, Google will ask or Firefox will ask, do you want us to remember your password? To me, it's no. You'll hear a lot of experts from a security perspective saying, if they already have your computer, it's already too late. There's some truth to that. But if someone's just borrowing your computer one day, or you're just at there, why leave that open? Why leave it just for stupid things to happen? So yeah, I don't. I always say no to. And so much so that I'm trying to find right now, and I know there's a way to do it. And I got to figure out where it never asked me. It's never something that I want to accidentally hit yes to. So it's just done. I say no all the time, because you're right. So if you use LastPass or OnePass, but you hit up top, remember my password, what good did you do? You did absolutely no good. You made yourself wide open to the world. And plus, LastPass and OnePass are encrypted, right? Now, Google's encrypted, but your browser's not necessarily as strong of as encryption as LastPass databases or OnePass databases. So if it's in there in the cloud and Google goes out there, you still have a little bit of an extra hack in there, or a little bit security lapse that's going on by remembering that password, especially if someone's doing like a keylog tracker, so to speak.
Right.
You're making yourself accessible to a lot of that kind of information, which is what scares the heck out of me for the most part, is especially because that's one of the bigger hacks that happens from a public Wi-Fi. Someone just throws basically a little keylog or Trojan on your computer, and they're just recording everything.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. I mean, if you're accessing public Wi-Fi and you have all of that, that's a piece of cake for somebody to pick up.
Yep, absolutely, all day long. Absolutely. It's even to the point in time, I guess, and this is insane for me, but it's at a point in time, and it's actually kind of the next topic, and we'll hit on here in a second. But if I notice my computer acting goofy, I will immediately turn the Wi-Fi off at a public location. If I don't recognize everybody in there, like, okay, this person's new and my computer's acting goofy, I'm going to turn you off, because I don't want someone trying to put crap on my computer. I'm a little insane, though. I just don't trust anybody that's in that location. Which does bring up public networks. Number 4, I think public networks are great, right? It gives realtors and small business that have no incomes an amazing ability to not spend a ton of money on data, right? Most people's data plans, depending on who you're using. Now, if you got Sprint or T-Mobile, I think you got unlimited data. But once you get past 5 gigs or whatever it is, now they start throttling down, things become slow. So if you can take advantage. What's that?
They say that doesn't happen.
And then, of course, yeah. It doesn't. I should say throttle, right? I shouldn't put them under the bus. But actually, who was it? Wasn't it? Maybe it was AT&T. Just had to pay off a big fine because of that.
Somebody just got popped for it.
I think it was AT&T. Just got popped for that. So from a real estate perspective or a small business that's on a low income thing, going to public Wi-Fi's is a huge resource for us, right? We get to go somewhere. Even if we wanted to sit outside, we could access that and come in there and get the data in that network out there and get going and do things from a business perspective, which is great, except for if I'm sharing confidential stuff over a public Wi-Fi. Becomes a danger, right? Because again, just as we were just hinting at, people can put malicious software, just put it straight into the computer from there if they know how to enter your network and pop it in there. Most of the time, it's a cheap hit. What they're going to do while they're in there is they're going to send you a bogus email. They're going to find out what that is, and then you're going to open it up and you're going to have direct access. but they don't need that stuff. From a Wi-Fi perspective, if it's shared, they can access, and it's pretty much an open port, and it's a dangerous world as far as that goes. So one of the things I always recommend is doing one of two things if you're at a public place. One, use your phone, right? You can use your own phone, hook it up as a Wi-Fi. Now you're doing things from your own phone on your own private network, so to speak. Now, of course, the consequence to that is what? We're using our own data, which is what we're trying to avoid. But two, the other thing I think you can do is what's called VPNs. And VPNs are virtual private networks. And anybody, and I'm sure Terry used this, but anybody that's had this before in the corporate world, they're basically a straight protected portal straight into a corporate network. So I can do everything I need to do from inside there, and it's a protected channel. Well, there have been companies out there that have now built essentially a virtual private network so you can search the internet in a secure environment. It's a closed pipe where everybody can come in there and come in and do their searching and do it safe. Now, for the most part, if you're going to get quality, you're going to spend a monthly cost. It's probably going to be somewhere between $6 and $15, depending on which kind of version you want. There is one that's free that I've had see people recommend. It's called ProXPN. See if I can throw that link out there. That people seem to like, and there is a free version of it. There's also a paid. But it's actually a pretty solid tool, and it's had some really strong reviews. Now, I don't use this because really if I'm going to be in a secured network and I want to do private information, I just turn my phone on and I do it from there. I got a decent plan with Verizon. I'm kind of one of their long-termers. So what they do for me is they gave me a pretty good rate and a good price. So I haven't used this one necessarily myself, but people that I have trust and I do this with, they like this one. I've had them recommend this one solid, and it's a really good tool. And again, it's free for the basics. And if you want to get a little more protection, you can pay per version. It's a Netherlands company, but they have, I think, 5 servers in the United States. So you're always going to you don't have to worry about having that big bounce going across the country and things like that. We won't talk about that publicly. There are other things that people use VPNs for, but we won't talk about that version. There's other things that go on.
So could somebody, like I have Sprint, for example, could somebody use this through their phone as then a Wi-Fi for other devices? Because Sprint doesn't Sprint blocks pretty much all of the other ones that have been out there. So you really have to have kind of, either the Wi-Fi set up through them or, something like that.
Oh, I didn't realize Sprint did that. So Sprint doesn't let you run your own personal mobile broadcast? That's interesting.
Unless you pay for the, unless you pay for the service through them.
Which is how they're getting around the use of unlimited data.
Right.
I don't know. It's a good question. I thought I had read, this had been like a year ago, I thought there were mobile VPNs, and if you could do it that way, which would be essentially the same thing.
Right. Because there was an app, Foxfire or something.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
That name.
And it was kind of a workaround for a while, and then Sprint caught on to it and blocked all that. So, people have been trying to do it because nobody wanted to pay the, $50 a month or whatever Sprint was charging at the time to do that.
I think it easily could be. But again, it's kind of like Craigslist, right? It's going to be that game of cat and mouse if you're trying to get around that.
Right.
And they'll catch on. And what all it is just ports, and they're just going to turn those ports off. But yeah, there are a couple of mobile VPNs, so you could do it, easily do it. And it goes back to what I wasn't going to talk about, but since you kind of hinted around it, there are people that wanted to watch certain. You'll see it a lot over international waters. People want to watch certain things or get certain access to data they can't get to, so they'll VPN to a local server here. So now it looks like when they're searching from the United States and not from where they're from.
All right.
And that's how they're getting around a lot of that stuff. And that's how some people will get around blackouts for sporting events.
I may or may not have watched some stuff that was some pay-per-views, those kind of things.
Oh yeah, no, no, it's definitely it's a good. I mean, to be honest with you, it's something that I have not done. Only not for the fact that it's not a belief system. It's just, to be honest with you, I don't have the energy to worry about it. There's always something else I can watch.
Right.
It's not allowed.
Yeah. Like I was not about to pay for the last, Pacquiao Mayweather fight at $100.
Right.
But I may have found it somewhere and got to watch it anyway. So.
Well, you know what kills me, and I've seen this a lot lately. It's going to be interesting what they do, and it's kind of a little bit off topic. But Periscope, and I don't know if Meerkat's doing, because I don't really get on Meerkat much anymore. Periscope has been great for me for watching something that I have no intention of paying, but kind of interested in watching.
Yeah, I've noticed they've been doing that.
I can't wait for something to start happening that way, where they're going to start saying, no, we got to do this. I mean, I've watched some. Now, is it high quality? No, but all I want to know is what's going on. If there's any good plays, what's going. I don't care.
Right.
For me, like from a football thing or a baseball game or whatever, I can watch whatever, and it holds my attention just long enough to get it done. But I find it interesting because I can't imagine the broadcast channels are very excited about that, losing money.
Yeah.
And then the last topic here is back up your data. So I'm going to call you out. Are you backing up your data, Terry?
Depending on what it is. I mean, like I know you use Carbonite, so explain what type of data that you're making sure Carbonite catches.
Well, we'll start a little bit earlier than that. To me, there's three things to talk about. There's basically a three-step protocol that people will say you want to have backup. One, maybe like a floppy drive or a zip drive where someone you have that data and it'll be in-house somewhere. Two, you would want to have something off-site, like a friend. Like I'd give you a backup drive and something like that. So, if there's a case of fire, tornado hits a house, whatever, I have something off-site that I can get back my data to. And then the other one they always say is online, which is Carbonite. Now, for me, I don't worry about it. Carbonite is unlimited data points, so I don't worry about what I'm backing up. My whole computer essentially is getting backed up.
Right.
I don't sit there and say these folders have to get backed up. The rest I don't care about. The problem with Carbonite, though, and it's becoming a challenge for me right now, is it is unlimited data. By default, they don't download video. So I've got to make sure that I hit those folders, say download everything on these folders.
Got it. See, and I think just for me, I don't, and part of it is I don't at this point create a lot of my own content anyway. But, what I use is, like I use Evernote for that kind of stuff. So, the content that I am creating, I have notebooks in Evernote for that. Or, I'll use Google Drive for certain things. So there's not a lot like physically on my computer at any time that I'm ultimately worried about. And it all depends on your usage and what you're doing.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, the easiest, and I'm thinking from realtors, right? And it's not to pick on realtors, but for realtors, to me, one of the biggest things that we have a hard time with is focusing 5 minutes long enough to realize that we should have this somewhere or done something with it.
Right.
My recommendation from a realtor perspective is don't worry about what folders, how, and what. Just say back up and let Carbonite do it for you. Because then it's just backing everything up. But if you're being very specific because you only have certain things you worry about and you don't want to reload your computer when you reinstall things that you have to reinstall everything. For instance, I've gone through 3 computers since I've had Carbonite, and just about a month ago, I probably spent half a day deleting my downloads folder because it just kept re-putting that stuff back in that I had totally forgot that all that crap was in there. Right. So what used to only be 200 files was about 2,000 files. And that's the downfall to it, though, right? You have these folders that are just miscellaneous folders that things go to automatically. Now you're going to keep growing and keep growing and keep growing because when it comes back, it's going to replace that folder with new data when you're back in, and that becomes a struggle. But I do like having it. Now, for me, I do what you're talking about when I want to have my floppy drives or my zip drives. Floppy drives. That's taking me just a ton.
How old are you?
Oh, that's kind of funny. Hey, Khalid, how you doing? That one cracks me up. So I will do that with the zip drives or the flash drives, or if I was going to give something to you, I would do that with that, because I want to make sure there are very specific things I can get to, and I can get to them quickly. Because if you were to lose your computer or your computer crashes, that restart process is going to take probably a minimum of 3 days, depending on how active you're on your computer, right? Because what Carbonite does and what most other online backup systems do is when they're restoring that stuff, they're only going to take up resources that do not affect your performance for that day. So if you're actively working on that computer, it's going to only take up a little bit of that time, and it's going to take forever to go. Theoretically, if you leave this over at night, that's when it's going to really start chomping and pulling that stuff off. But it's still probably going to take 72, 96 hours to get all that stuff back onto your computer. So if I want things quicker, then I'm going to have it on a flash drive that I have to have with me at all times.
Right. And from an agent perspective, I mean, the best security is to just immediately get rid of anything that's pertinent from your computer as quickly as possible. Put it into your online management systems or whatever, because you just don't want to have personal information, whether it's on a tablet or it's on a computer, especially a laptop, you're carrying that around. You don't want anybody to get access to that.
Completely agree, and that's a great strategy that I never really thought of. I think that's a good idea. Is when you and Dropbox is a good solution for that if you have enough data. Even putting on a Carbonite and taking it off is not a bad idea. Although you got to be careful with Carbonite, because if you take it off, it always syncs, and if it doesn't find it, it will take it off the Carbonite backup. So to me, if you're going to do it that way, then yes, you want to have like a Dropbox account or Google Drive where that stuff automatically goes there and no longer on your computer.
Right.
You got to be careful with the online backup systems because it's a syncing process. It's a two-way communication, which means that when one is missing, it's going to have 30 days and the other will be missing as well. Which I don't laugh, but I feel bad because some people didn't always understand it early on. They go, well, I just left it in Carbonite. No, it's gone. It went by the way of the trash can that you threw it in earlier. So, I agree, because to me, one of the strongest things you can do is have a Dropbox strategy or a Google Drive strategy or an iCloud strategy where, again, that pertinent data, personal data that you have in there goes somewhere that is not only encrypted, but will stay put when you need to make sure you have it for so long, right? I mean, and every state's a little different. Illinois is Terry, 5 years we got to keep that stuff for us?
I think
or is it 7?
It might be 7. I'm not sure.
I keep it 7 because I can't remember, and I got to research that to find out completely.
But even something as simple as that, we're supposed to have our file drawers in our offices locked. And right. I know so many agents across all kinds of companies that don't do that. I mean, granted, now that's physical, but it's the same concept.
Same concept.
If you're not doing that, you're probably not backing it up online either.
Well, think about it online. Think about this. How often have any realtor that you come across run across a printer and have a document there that darn well no one's supposed to see?
Oh, every day I see it.
And again, just like you said, to me, this is why the conversation is just going, because I've run across this way too much lately. Where I'm going, okay, I run through, I go into a new office, I see stuff, and I don't see it, but I just kind of see it laying around, where I'm going, okay, I'm not really technically supposed to be anywhere near that information. It has nothing to do with me. What are you doing with your online stuff? How open are you leaving that stuff? How wide open is your email? Do you lock your phone when you walk away from it? Do you lock your tablet when you walk away from it? Or is it just up and running and you go get a quick cup of coffee and do whatever? Or do you what are you doing with all this stuff to make sure you are safe? Or are you just leaving everything as wide open as you leave when you walk around an office? And I think it's a good point. I mean, we could easily get into the conversation about office security and office maintenance. I mean, for instance, do you realize that when you scan a document into a printer, that it's not a one-off, it stays in the hard drive?
Right.
So all these printers that exist out there now have a ton of data that could be accessed by somebody unscrupulous, especially when you're only leasing these printers and these scanners. it becomes a, and again, I don't want to go down that road because this is not really trying to be a fear monger, but it's just one of the things you got to be aware of, that when you're dealing with this stuff, these are scans, these are hard drive snaps that you need to make sure you keep aware of, that you can do with, and have a strategy when you're transitioning, and have a strategy when you're conversing with those leasing companies of what they're going to do when they replace a new BizHub. What are you doing with this hard drive? I want to know now. And when we buy a new BizHub, what are you going to do with that one? I want these things in place, because it becomes a major issue.
Yeah, I don't think most people even realize that.
No, and they don't. And the problem is right, the managing brokers don't think, but they got enough stuff on their mind, and I get that. But you got to have these things in place, because you have left yourself up for liability, because you made a relationship with a company that had no plan. And at the very least, even if you have a plan but they don't follow through with it, you had the plan. It's now their responsibility to manage it, and now it's their liability. But if you don't have that written, what do you do? And I think it should be the same thing from an office perspective. These things should be talked about. These things should be done. I mean, we talk about realtor safety. We just spent the last month talking about TRID, which is a hugely important conversation to have. I can't tell you the last time I've been in any single office where I've heard anybody sit there and set a protocol and a plan saying this is how you are going to set up your drive, how you set up your folders, how you protect your data. It's equally as dangerous, equally as important. And I haven't heard a single person have these conversations.
Right.
Now, I'm not in every room. I'm part of one office. I do talk to a lot of people, but I don't think it's something that anybody really pays attention to. So those are the 5. Hopefully we're going to have some people in here, so this could be a quicker session. You tell me anything that crossed your mind that you wanted to hit more about, or something that crossed your mind that you wanted to expound upon, so to speak.
No, there isn't much. I mean, I think, especially in our business, people are just so careless about what they're dealing with. And then I also think that there's a lack of education as far as, what is important information. It's not like we're carrying around, copies of Social Security cards or anything like that. But, periodically we do have certain pieces of information that, we do have copies of driver's license, or we do have something that has Social Security numbers on there. So that's the kind of stuff that, you have to even be more mindful of, that, those are the things that like for me, I have a business practice that I don't ever want physical copies of that kind of stuff. Absolutely. I put it into, obviously we use .loop with Keller Williams. I put all of that stuff into .loop. Even if it's just a miscellaneous folder within my loop, I put it in there because I don't want it. I don't want physical copies of it. I don't want it in my email. I put it, where I know that we can access it, as a company, and then I'm done with it. Because I just don't like taking the chance. I wouldn't want somebody taking the chance with mine.
Well, and you bring up a good point, right? So you have emails back and forth. Maybe you are lucky enough to have your client email that information over, which is awesome. At least it's electronic, then you don't have that paperwork. You don't worry about losing it. But if you don't take care of it and put it somewhere secure, or set up protocols in your email to secure that stuff, you still left that wide open.
Right. And I think even you saying that, I think that should have been, or should be, a topic as well, because you don't ever want to ask for that information in an email.
Right.
You don't ever want to get somebody's Social Security number or even their driver's license number really over something like an email, because that can be, as we've talked about, that can be hacked into. That can, like that. Even a text message, like I wouldn't want that in a text message either. That's got to be physical. But I see so many times where people will take, they'll take a Social Security number, or they'll take a credit card number, a debit card number, something like that through an email. That's absolutely not something you should be doing. Worst case scenario, it should be a phone call.
I would agree. And the thing is, there are so many, especially from the real estate perspective, there are so many services these days that are out there that can do that stuff from a cloud perspective. That's always encrypted from one point to the next point. We don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Again, we have .loop, an encrypted tool. They can put it in, we can create a folder, they can add it in there. You have, from a rental perspective, you have all sorts of rental management solutions out there that they can put those documentations in there, and we don't have to touch it, and we don't have to have any access into our world to have that. and let the responsible parties view what they need to view.
And I think
I agree completely.
I think that's a good point because, from the rental side of the business, there are amazing companies out there. My Smart Move, there's a couple different ones that I don't ever get to see, any of that, and I don't really need to see it. There's certain things, I'm not the decision maker, so I don't necessarily need to see your W-2s and all that kind of stuff. Yes, it's an easy way for us if they don't have that system. But, the landlords that are using mysmartmove.com and those, that's making everything so much better because it's communication directly through them. There's nothing physical. And then, me as the third party, I don't see anything that I don't need to see.
And that's huge, right? I mean, I know what we talk about. And again, rental's an easy one because there's a lot of things that are getting out there that realtors have, unfortunately, in the past have more hands into than they should. There are tools that are in place now that just make that so much simpler. And I don't want to use the word simpler because I think that's what the realtors go. This is easy. I don't have to do it. To me, I think the mindset should be not so much simpler, but this is a much more secure solution that makes life better for everybody else.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? We got to stop worrying about simpler and start worrying about better practices. Yeah, typically, right now they can go hand in hand, but I think we think about it. I think we think about it sometimes the wrong way that leads us into a jeopardy of leaving things too wide open. Again, simpler, sending me an email, I'll forward it on.
Right.
Now you've just opened yourself up.
Because from a rental standpoint, what's the typical email that we get? A completed application that has their social security number on there, right, a copy of their credit report, and depending on the time of the year, either pay stubs or W-2s. Really 3 things that I don't want. I don't want to be responsible for, but that's our process through that. So by some of that online stuff, I don't ever have to worry about that.
Right. And again, I think it's wise. I do like some of the new companies. Again, My Smart Move, I think, is always probably the most obvious that's out there because that's probably one of the bigger ones today. But I think it's great. And again, you even got things like .loop or DocuSign that are starting to build their own built-in documentation storage solutions that I think should be used in those regards. Even sometimes your MLS systems, like we can put some of that stuff inside the MLS system right now, inside of MRED, and that stuff stays in there and it never has to go back and forth.
Right.
And it stays secure and I don't have to have it in any email. It's one of the things I try to teach to the agents all the time, that if you don't have the ability or the finances to pay for a .loop or a DocuSign, it's not a big deal because now at this point in time, you have a solution in place with your MLS. Or I know you're playing with Wise Agent. You can do some of it that way, but then again, you're still doing it that way because sometimes that communication is going still through you and not between the proper parties.
Yeah.
But even some of the more complicated CRMs are starting to understand that and starting to leave those tools open for you.
Right. And again, I don't like that. I like that they're doing that. That's great. But then if I utilize that, then again, I'm taking a lot of security on myself that I just don't want.
No, and I agree. I completely agree. There are some tools I know that they've been talking about it where they will start to trying to add those third-party systems in there, right? They're starting to let you add the attorney so you can start adding kind of a direct conversation. .loop is trying that to a degree. The problem is, you got to get these third-party vendors or these third-party people that actually want to pay for a little bit to get it done. And that's where some of that struggle is coming from today. I think if you actually had a CRM tool that actually knew how to make that happen and be a minimal cost to my vendors or our vendors, our support staff, I think they would actually knock it out of the park because then you can have those private conversation threads that are going through that I can just do the introduction and move on. Tom meet John, John meet Tom, have a heyday. But they don't do it yet. And I get it. Again, for them, it's a liability just as much as it is for us, but it's us first, right? We got to make sure we're keeping ourselves safe and still make it simple. So I think that's about it. I mean, those are huge topics in its own right. Hopefully we had people on today, but again, 3 o'clock becomes a little bit of a challenge, and I get that. Is there any final thoughts you kind of want to throw out there before we kind of call it a draw for the day?
No, I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, I'm good too. I mean, what I'll have, if you guys go to my website, I'll put it down here in the bottom. If anybody comes back to watch the replay, out on the bottom, I'll have my website. There will be a link to the shortcuts that I had, the little tips and tricks that I built. There'll be a link on my website to download that if you want. And keep watching this and watch Twitter account, because right now Terry and I are playing a little bit with timing schedules. Our schedules are getting busier, so we're trying to figure out what's going to work consistently, and we will do a much better job of letting you know 6 hours in advance. We'll figure that out. So that's all I got. Terry, you have a good one, and we'll talk soon.
All right, buddy. I'll see you.